these then photographic experiences so that you're able to create artwork that is then not a photo, but it looks then photographic. But most importantly, it feels photographic, and you feel the same things as you feel when you see a powerful photo. I think that is really the goal. It's about the art. So if it then makes you then feel something, then it's then good art.
Hi everyone, it's Sam, NFT Statistics, and today we have Roope Rainisto on the podcast. Roope was the artist that first made AI really click for me. His project Life in West America takes us to an imaginary world, West America, which has a look, feel, and message which is deeply ownable to him as an artist. The world in so many ways feels familiar and relatable though. People living together in a town, going to events together, swimming in pools outside their aspirational homes. But the project also has very clear signs that we're in a world built by AI tools of 2022 and 2023 with all their strengths and limitations. The project feels like Roope putting a stake in the ground for where AI currently is, what its limitations are, while at the same time connecting us with very human scenes that the AI creates. He has a new project coming up called REWORLD, which has a similar look and feel, but he says wrestles with darker societal themes. As part of that project, he also curated the work from 10 incredible AI artists. This conversation explores those projects and gets a glimpse into what he is and is not trying to accomplish with his work. He's a Finnish artist with very deep insights on the progress of AI and how art in general is evolving. I find him deeply insightful and deeply thought-provoking. Spent a lot of time thinking about this conversation afterwards. I really hope you enjoy it. Roope Rainisto, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So what was your overall goal with Life in West America?
In that one, I really wanted then to combine two things. So I wanted to combine AI with this sense of like being able to create something that looks and feels like a traditional photo. And I think that was really the kind of the overall then pursuit. People have been now taking photos for like almost 200 years. And, photographs have then excellent rules and an understanding over, what kind of photos people then enjoy. But I really wanted then to try to expand those rules. So really try to find how can you expand our use of AI.
So say more about that. What do you think was expanded with this collection in terms of expanding what it is that people enjoy when they look at photography?
I mean, if we think about on AI art, what does AI art really mean? I think the interesting thing here is to really think about those AI and art as its own thing. So I mean, how do you use AI, but also this whole notion of art? I mean, people have been doing then art for like thousands of years, and art has a whole understanding of rules and principles you can apply. And I think there's plenty of AI art that is then out there, which is quite focused on the AI side of it. But I think overall people's enjoyment comes from the art side itself. So in the case of this one, I wanted to use AI then to create pictures that they look like photos. But it's an interesting question over that, would people enjoy this art more if it would look then more realistic? So, I mean, that would be also a choice. So I mean, I could use AI then to create pictures that they look like then perfect photos. But I would be pretty sure that actually then in that case the answer is no. I mean, that there's really something more that you get from the fact that they are not 100% then photorealistic, that they kind of leave more to the interpretation. So they leave something more the person who then starts then to see them. So in that sense, they are more like than paintings. So if you think about paintings, there's many paintings that kind of leave things for the person. So there's two people that then see the same painting, but they then start to feel like different things.
What was the overall process? I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but what was the process kind of start to finish for creating this project?
So the process overall, the actual then production side took that roughly then 2 months. But then before those 2 months, I spent previous 2 months then trying to learn, basically then to understand all the steps that I would then need in order then to be able then to execute this. But I think overall, once I was able then to have then all the parts that I knew I then needed then to be able then to create this. The actual part I have written a small site about it, but I think the actual process is I created so the end result is then 500 pictures. So I created roughly 35,000 pictures then over those 2 months, and then some 15,000 more than then pictures for the kind of the in-painting process. So in-painting then refers to the fact that after I then choose a result, then I then start to use these in-painting tools then to change some parts of that. And in-painting nowadays is so smooth that it's then hard to tell. I mean, at least I then hope that it's then hard to tell then from the end results.
So if we were to, okay, so going back, when what is that first thing? Like, what were the inputs into the AI that created these outputs? How did you, what were the inputs that the AI grabbed from in order to create the initial end results?
So the thing that I used here is this thing called Dreamboot training. So this is now based on the Stable Diffusion. But Stable Diffusion has the capability that you can actually then start to customize it. So rather than the results being with the kind of the base version, you can use this process called Dreamboot training, which then permits you then to change the styling in a way. Or it does then give you then tools then to do multiple things. In this case, I use this Dreamboot training then to change the kind of the output styling. So then to get this kind of nostalgia film then look. So that was the kind of the start of the process. Then to be able to achieve a then consistent look.
So that dream board, you're saying that you took kind of a normal set of images, but what made them unique was not the images you input, but this dream board kind of, I guess we'll just say the word filter, like an Instagram filter that kind of gave it its look and feel. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, this Dreamboot training is the kind of the official term, I guess, is then fine-tuning. So in a way, it then fine-tunes the outputs that you get from Stable Diffusion into a particular style. You can then fine-tune it then to be like a painting or a cartoon. I fine-tune them in this case then to be more like these than film photos. But you really then do this fine-tuning for then to be basically to be able to achieve a consistent style. So that was really this the first step there. After that, I then started then to go into my head. So I mean, then a really big part is to really then to think about the content. So I went outside and then started then to write down, what type of content then would I want to see. So writing down hundreds and hundreds of the prompts. And then after that, you then start to run those prompts in then different then combinations. You start to see what works, see then something interesting. Then you come back there, and the next day, then you create some more. You refine, you filter, you fine tune some more, and then it's a process really. So I mean, that's why it then kind of then took 2 months. I was able then to create 10 pieces on a kind of good day, and then after you then understand that you need to do this 500 pieces. So then you start to figure out, okay, 10 pieces a day, then I just need to spend 2 months on it. So
so we're looking at this image that we have on the screen here, for example. What is it? I mean, clearly there are pieces of it, like hands kind of popping up in places you don't expect, and elbows where they probably shouldn't be, but how did you decide what to leave as is versus what to make adjustments on?
It's a good question. I mean, I think, really the overall question of why did this take 2 months, why did I have to do like 50,000 pictures? It was not a kind of technical problem. So, I mean, a computer is able then to render 500 pictures a day. But I mean, my then ultimate test for this was that I wanted each piece, when I saw each piece, I wanted that piece to make me then feel something. And that was really the ultimate test. And it's quite subjective in a way. I have thousands of pieces in my hard drive that are like, they are perfect in the kind of the technical sense. But then when I see them, I don't feel something. And, that's why it then kind of started to take such a long time. So each of the 500 pieces there, they at least then made then me feel something. And that's the kind of the only test I then do. So, I mean, I can't expect somebody else then to feel something if I personally then don't feel something. And I think that was the kind of the ultimate test. So after I then found pieces that really, I then felt something, that really, I changed the details that I thought were then distracting. So I think each of the kind of the feeling is something in my head, is essentially a small then story of parts. And then I then went with that one. So if there were the details that I think did not help with that one, then I then started then to change those details. But for instance, these hands, I really then wanted to preserve as much of them as I could, because I think they are, the interesting part in a way. They are the thing that you might not then observe at, the first glance. So if you see it in a thumbnail, then you might not, then be able then to see those. But then after you start to then see it in detail, then you start to observe those, small details there.
It felt like in some ways it kind of puts a stake in time for where AI currently is. Like, we get these wonderful images, but at the same time, we have 3 hands coming out of someone's elbow. And I thought at some level, this was how I interpreted it. So I'd be curious if this was kind of how it was intended, but I feel like it's almost like this is, January 2023, I believe, when it was launched. This is kind of what AI does with different prompts, and you get words that don't make sense, and you get different body parts, but the overall narrative feels like one that's extremely relatable.
Yeah, I mean, it does certainly have this time then capture then component. So I really wanted to do art that then captures the time. I mean, if we go 5 years then forward in time, even if we see like then Midjourney number 5 then today, it's then taken a kind of the bit then step up. But then once again, the question is that, would you enjoy this artwork more if all the hands would be then gone and so on? So I think the answer might not be yes. I mean, in a way, the fact that, those tools are then progressing all the time, it's not, it then doesn't mean that the artwork then quality comes up. I think we are now in a quite then special then moment in time, where the results are, that you are able then to make sense of them, but they are, extremely exciting at the same time. So they might be then quite rare, in the future.
What is it about from my experience looking at the art? It feels like it feels a bit like things like body parts. It often seems to just kind of get wrong. It feels like it really doesn't understand words. So signs will have symbols as opposed to English letters or different language letters. It feels like there are a couple areas that the AI generators, basically from spending a lot of time in your work, that it seems to kind of consistently be like the areas that it isn't quite where a photograph would be. All right. What is it about those things that is hard for AI to understand? And are there other aspects that you think are kind of consistently just not quite where a camera would be?
Well, I think this is a highly temporary problem. So, I mean, this problem will then start then to go away soon. I think, the fingers and text both have the I think that, if we then think about text, the AI knows that there should be some then symbol here, but it then doesn't understand a word, so then it just then puts then something there. The AI understands that, here's a finger, but it can't then count to 5, so it just puts like 10 more fingers. Yeah, but I mean, as I said, so even if you look at, Midjourney number 5, it seems to be able to do like, quite then perfect hands, at least sometimes. So I don't think this is a kind of the fundamental problem. In the case of these pictures, I really didn't wanted to take advantage of this thing, so I didn't consider it to be a kind of bad thing, but rather a good thing. I think of the moments when I see, for instance, like then 3 hands or like hands in 2 places. It's almost like indicating that there's some kind of a movement there. So it's like showing 2 spots in time. So the hand was here and the hand was also there. It's a bit like almost like a kind of then cartoon. So I mean, if you think about then cartoons and the frames, there's perfectly acceptable then things where you actually put like then 4 hands in one picture, and that then means they kind of like that it then indicates something. And I think likewise here really can start to when you see the hand in then 2 places, you don't think of how does the hand then move. So in a way it then makes it then feel like so it's not as then still.
Yeah. Kind of getting to the topic of AI in general, one of the quotes I heard you say in another interview was that a photograph has a complex relationship with the truth. And I'm curious what you mean by that statement, that there's a complex relationship between the truth, between a camera and the truth.
Yeah, I mean, people then assume. I mean, there's the kind of the assumption that that a photo that represents reality. Of course, I mean that is not true in a way. A photo is a 2D picture of something, and we have the kind of the rules that we assume or we hope that this thing is the actual reality, because it resembles the thing that we then see with our own eyes, then quite much so we then assume it's the same thing. I think photographers then use something like the Photoshop to change everything, but this whole fact of how you compose a picture, what do you then choose then to be in the picture, so what do you then to choose then to leave out of the picture. I mean, that's kind of like highly then subjective. It's my kind of statement of the things that I want to show, and I think this is really just on the same path of kind of like I mean these things are the real because we recognize them. I mean we do recognize cars and people and and then everything. So I mean these cars have then existed somewhere sometime. It's not just in then this particular combination, or at the same moment in the same time.
Yeah, it is. I've been a photographer for different parts of my career, and one of the questions people ask is, was that Photoshopped? And I think what they don't realize often is that every single photo you have ever seen not pretty much everything you've seen anywhere has had some sort of editing. Like there's always an editing layer, be that increasing content. And I think people get the feel for that more as Instagram and other things got more popular. But yeah, there is always some layer of editing with every photo we've ever seen. We're just extremely used to that at this point with photography. What do you think people most misunderstand about the kind of AI art movement as it is right now?
Well, I think, this AI art movement is, of course, I mean, there's a whole range of arguments towards that, AI art is then bad in a number of ways. So either it's the lazy, or it then copies, or it's kind of like no skill, or kind of like it's not creative. I mean, there's a whole range of these arguments. It then depends on then who you ask. And I think, there is then certainly, plenty of bad AI art. But just as the same as there's plenty of bad paintings, or there's plenty of bad photos, or there's plenty of bad, the writing or so on. I mean, that's the whole point of art. Art is kind of like everyone can then do art, and then there is then plenty of bad art, but then it's more about the artist and their expression than the kind of the form that they use. It's not that AI art is fundamentally bad or good. It's perfectly kind of okay to say that since it's so easy to make something that looks nice with these tools. I mean, you can go to Midjourney and then essentially write something, and you get something that looks nice. And it's perfectly fine to say that even though it looks nice, it's not art. And I think that's fair. But it doesn't mean that all AI art. I think in the kind of the big scale, I think this whole AI art term is a bit strange, because it kind of implies that art either is AI art or not. And I think what will then happen in quite shortly is that kind of like AI will then go into all art then to some extent. So if you think of like in the 1980s or 1990s, somebody then perhaps could say that somebody is then doing art then with using then Photoshop. So you would say, hey, this is then now then Photoshop art. But then nowadays, then nobody says that you are doing then Photoshop art, because all artists will then then use then Photoshop in their process. I think that the same thing will also then start then to happen then with AI. So I mean, AI tools will be then integrated into Photoshop and so on, and then you don't really need to do it like so it's pure art or it's then pure AI art, but you don't really do like it's your art, but you have then used AI for like then 5% there.
Yeah, I think a piece of it isn't. I think a piece of might be what's happening a little bit is that Claire Silver, when she was on the podcast, talked about how people originally thought that cameras were cheating and it made art too easy. Yep. And I think one thing we've seen as time's gone on now, even in my career as a photographer, when I was doing that more full time, the cameras got so good that it almost felt like anybody could take a nice portrait. And the bar to do something that looked beautiful got lower and lower. It got easier and easier to do something beautiful. And now you can use these tools from my house here in Colorado to take an incredible image of someone at a spice market in India at sunset. And it's almost like, and it's a similar thing. I think people are just amazed at how much easier it's gotten to create something beautiful and amazing. And I'd be curious from your take in that world and with that bar where it is, how do you personally differentiate between art you want to buy, art you don't want to buy, artists, and we'll talk a little bit about your upcoming project, but what you curate as incredible work. What does that bar look like in this day and age for you?
Yeah, I think there's a really kind of interesting question over, what is the art, everyone, I mean, I think it is then extremely good that as many people as possible are able then to be then creative and then to start to express themselves. I mean, then to create art that is relevant to them or their friends and so on. And I think that's great. Now, of course, in the case of art, what I personally then look for is the kind of like artists that have their own recognizable then voice. Yes, I mean which is a combination of the style, but it's mostly about the content and the kind of the story. I mean, ultimately, then the test is then usually that if it is recognizable. So if you see an art piece and it's cool, but you have no idea, or you don't get a feeling that it's from somebody, then it's then usually a test that that then the person who has whose artwork that one is hasn't probably then refined their personal style or their personal voice in a way that it would be then meaningful. So
That was something I noticed. That was something I noticed just with AI in general, that there was something about how suddenly I felt like it was the grouping of images and having like an ownable look and feel that transcended into like larger storytelling that for me at least made your work just so stand out. But other artists as well. When you when you have that grouping and that larger body of work, it almost feels like there's that ownable kind of aspect, even beyond just what one amazing image would be.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it is hard to tell personal style from a kind of single picture, but after you see like 20 or then 50 or 100, then it hopefully is then recognizable. It is interesting when we were then choosing artists from this post photography perspectives. We encountered plenty of artists whose work, if you see it only by itself, you think, oh, this looks then fantastic and so on. But then the problem was that we then went on to the next artist and we then saw the same work in a way, or that we weren't able to tell that, this one is from this person and this one is then from that person. And there's a kind of a number of reasons, why something like that then can happen. Many use like the Midjourney's version then 4 especially has a kind of bad tendency where it's easily then starts to overpower your, then individual style. It's not to say that those results are then good. I mean, they are good, but if I can't recognize, it becomes harder for me to start to think about that. I want to then to acquire those pieces because then they could be done by then somebody else.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what kind of got you here? I remember I was first introduced to your work when I had Claire Silver on the podcast, and one of your just absolutely incredible, that was actually an instance of a single piece of AI art, or sorry to use the term AI art, but we'll just assume people know what I mean. That just blew me away. It was the one that won that competition with Claire Silver. But I'm curious a little bit, what was your background that got you here, both towards like as an artist and then also as someone who wanted to use these tools to build your art?
So my main background is as a kind of professional designer. So then previous then to my art life, I worked in 25 years as a professional designer. So doing UI design, UX design, concept design. So I'm a Finn from Finland. So everyone in Finland then did the smartphones, at some stage. So I spent like 10 years then designing smartphones and so on. So I mean, I have plenty of experience then working then in the kind of trying to solve problems in a professional sense. Then 2 years ago, I had my kind of like a midlife crisis in a way, and I then thought, well, I want to try then to do then something for myself and not to be a kind of in a kind of big then company or the corporation. So I have then done art for the whole of my life. So I got my first camera when I was 13 years old. So I've been now taking photos for like 30 years. I've then played in a few bands. I write songs, I write screenplays, and so on. And I think I have then done that for a while. Now with this new world of Web3 and the kind of the NFT space, I really thought, well, I want then to give it a try, and that's the road that I've been on for the last 2 years now.
So for it is only 2 years ago you started working with AI tools to create art.
That's then 18 months ago. So I started then in August 2021. So I mean, of course, I have, as said, I mean, I have 25 years history in then doing then visual design and then interaction design, and so designing then interfaces and so on. But that's not art in a way. So that's more like the kind of the craft side. So.
Got it. And what would you say are or what were your very first steps? For someone who's interested in this field, who sees your success and who sees the amazing output you've created, like just 18 months ago, what were those initial steps, and what could someone do who wants to kind of start down this path?
Well, I think, it's probably easier to ask, what can you then start then to do today? So 18 months ago, it was then quite hard. So, I mean, the only thing you were able to use were these kind of Colab notebooks, and there were then no instructions, and you had then to learn it by yourself. If you're now then starting then today, it's still not easy, but it's then much easier than before. So I mean, my personal recommendation to everyone is to start with something like the Midjourney. Midjourney is then fantastic because you get then great results, but most importantly, it is fantastic because you then see the work of the other people. Then you start to see their prompts and so on. So that is the fastest way to learn then this specific thing. You then go to Midjourney, you spend there a few days, after which you then see instantly, you then see the prompt, the results, you see the prompt, the results, then you can start to do something yourself and you get results. And it's really fun. I think after the hard part here is that, art is not a technical problem. It's not that after you solve the technical side, that you are then, started to create art. The painful fact or the hard, part of art is that, art is about your kind of story. So what do you want to tell? And I think, that even after you then start then to learn all the tools, I mean, you then learn Midjourneys and Stable Diffusions and so on. And after you become a kind of capable of then to be able then to do all the pictures that you have in your head, that's still not sufficient. And then the work starts. So after you then are then capable of the tools, then you need to go into yourself and you think about, what is my art? So I mean, what do I want to tell?
Yeah. Why don't we jump forward ahead to the project that you have upcoming? Because I think it really is a super interesting one that you've had two projects kind of in succession with each other. But you have a project called REWORLD, and I guess one place to start is, how is this project? What is the world you want to create with REWORLD? How is that different from the world that you've created with Life in West America? The couple outputs I've seen look like they are different worlds, but also very distinctly your style. So I'm curious kind of how you see those two worlds as different.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question in a way that, if we go first to Life in West America, it's fundamentally about the people in there. It's about their kind of personal wishes, dreams, aspirations, hopes, and so on. And I think Life in West America focuses on these people and their kind of like then inside world. It focuses on them. So I thought, well, so what do I then start to tell? So what is the next story? And I think the next story is, is the kind of the counter side to that. So so our REWORLD is about this. Is about the society that people are in. So we as then individuals have our hopes and dreams, and we want to be ourselves, and we want to be then distinct and so on. But then there is this huge force of what does it mean that we are in a kind of society? And I think that's the overall theme of REWORLD. So society has rules. It then gives our clear kind of suggestions on then how to behave, how do we then interact with people, and it talks about what is our self then identity, how do we then start to go into different roles. We want to join a big then crowd of people. We go into a town and we don't find ourselves and so on, and I think. There actually, in a way, there are two sides of the coin. So, one talks about the kind of a single person, and then one talks about the impact of the society in there. And I think the societal impact, of course, means that actual content is quite different. So it's usually more than kind of then zoomed out. It's then focusing not so much on an individual person.
Yeah, it does look like some of the images do have that individual focus, just looking here. But I can see How are those also the part of this broader theme that you're trying to deliver?
The broader theme is about roles and kind of like or how do you lose yourself in these roles? So if you become a racing car driver or a kind of fashion model, or you do these things, kind of like it is kind of like, who are you? So what's your self identity versus your identity in the society? And I think that's the overall thing. So the people in life in West America don't think about that. They are in their own worlds. They are the kind of the stars in their own world. And here I wanted to explore, since it's then 500 pieces. So I mean, then there's a whole range of like 10 different ways then to explore it. But life in West America is somewhat more hopeful in a way that it then tries to show the hopes of people. In a REWORLD, I try to talk about the counter side of why then everyone is, why you can't then be yourself.
Very cool. Yeah, it does feel in life in West America like you just have these more interpersonal scenes, and it's about it is their relationships and kind of their place in the family or in the town or whatever, but a bit more, almost even more relatable, I guess, in that sense. What was your general thought in terms of? I'm curious, kind of, as an NFT artist, how your thought in doing these two projects so close to each other, having two kind of very similar in terms of, both 500 pieces, both, people in society, kind of all very much your signature kind of look and feel. How do you generally think about the amount of work you want to publish and NFTs you want to mint? What was your kind of process there?
I mean, I'm certainly thinking that I will do 2 big kind of 500 pieces per year. So I mean, this will be my last 500 piece kind of art collection for 2023. I think this rule of 2 per year is actually quite a good one usually. I was thinking about if this wouldn't come out then 6 months or later. So if I would come out with my next art in September, that's actually quite a long time in a way that would there's so much things that then go on. Who knows where we are in September or so on. So I think that I did this as fast as I could in the quality that I wanted. So I mean, that then took still then multiple months. So I started then to work on this even before the Braindrops one was then published. But yeah, I mean, I do then certainly understand that there is a high risk of the artists that they release then too much work. These 500 pieces are extremely interesting kind of like thing because it has much potential. It's then sufficiently then large so that you have so many people there that have pieces. Then you have then hundreds of then individuals, and it does have extremely good then kind of like then impact for the project. So rather than doing small projects of like 100 pieces, they are quite harder. So I think the big ones, even though it's substantially more work and so on, they do have more potential than to start to grow. So in that way, I am a fan of this concept of then being able then to do 500 pieces at once. But yeah, as said, so I will not do 500 piece ones for a while. I'm exhausted right now, so
I'm sure. And this and your upcoming piece, REWORLD, which you can see on this screen here, both has your work, but then you've also done a thing where you curated other people's work. What were the pieces that who were the artists who you curated, who you think are some of the most interesting, exciting artists that people will get to mint through this upcoming?
Well,
mint?
I don't want to be impartial, or I don't want to highlight some artists or over the other. Well, I do want to say that all 10 ones there are really exciting. So I think for most of the 10 artists, it's probably their first, pieces that they then meet. So we really took a lot of effort to try to find new voices. I think there's plenty of art outside here that is fantastic, but it's the persons that you have to who have then done it then plenty of times before. So we then took a kind of lot of time to try to find like the new exciting artists, or that we feel has their own voice and they have their own style. I do have my personal favorites, but I don't think it's fair to say those out loud. But I do think that the 1,000 pieces that we will then provide, it will be, if you are then wanted to start from somewhere in this art. So if you want then to own some of this art yourself, it is really this is I really believe this is then the best place to start.
It really is incredible work. I'm going to say this, and I think everyone who's listening really should go to postphotography.xyz and see the variety of it's. One is the variety of the work. Two, it's understanding why this work is only possible with AI tools and why that makes it incredibly unique and not in any way just kind of like the photo replication, not photo replication, but the photos from your computer that I was talking about. It really, just scrolling through this is just such a experience to behold. So congratulations on that. It's really incredible work.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that this is probably, if you turn the clocks then 5 years forward, so we are now in 2028. I really believe that in 2023, I mean right now, this will be seen as the start of this movement, essentially, where this then photographic experiences, so that you're able to create artwork that is then not a photo, but it then looks then photographic. But most importantly, it feels photographic, and you feel the same things as you feel when you see a powerful photo. I think that is really the goal. It's about the art. So if it then makes you then feel something, then it's then good art. And I think, is it then done with a camera or then with these tools? It will become then all this important.
Did you have criteria that someone had to have in order to qualify for this exhibition? Like as far as where did AI art begin and where did AI art end? Like, what are the criteria that put it into the box of something that would be eligible to be part of this?
Not really. I mean, we really wanted to also highlight a range of approaches. So there's a whole range of different softwares being used. All the solutions I do think of are now being used in this art, with the different combinations, with the different processes, with the different steps of like, you also do something then with the AI that you then done, you then do some more steps then afterwards. I think then all that is perfectly fine. The criteria, in a way, the two criteria really is that it should be then recognizable then to be your work, and it should be work that takes advantage of AI. So you're creating something that would not then exist as such if AI then did not exist, or if AI then was not used. So there is also like this movement of trying to use AI tools then to create stuff that looks like a photo. We create something where you can't tell that is AI, and I think that's then fine also. But here we wanted to explore, everything you can do if you then to start to take full advantage of the kind of the new capabilities and the new styles that you can do.
Yeah, a couple that jump out to me. One, this collection here where it's kind of like realistic scenes, but everything is pink and blue and has these color palettes and kind of aspects of these images that feel like it couldn't really happen in real life. And then I also really love this series up here where it's like where it feels like the people are meant to be as real as possible. Like this one really jumps out to me, but the scene, and there's something about the image that makes it clear that it's certainly not the way the world appears in 2023. But those are just two that jumped out at me.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really that, hopefully then when you see the 1,000 pieces there, that after you see them for a while, then even though you don't see the name of the artist, that you're then able to point that this is then done by Antti, this is done by Simon, and then then this is then done by somebody else. And that's actually a hard thing. So when you have 10 artists,
I'm sure.
But I mean, that's the goal. And then there is this joke that all AI art that looks the same, and I think this is also then wants to prove that that's not true, but it's really about that highlighting the artists, highlighting people that use AI as their own tool.
Yeah. Okay. I want to wrap up the conversation. Just a few quick questions. Sometimes I like to ask people, kind of quick questions that they can get to the audience. With Life in West America, did you have a favorite output?
The honest answer is no. I think my favorite thing about it there is that these 500 pieces. That is the thing, and that there's all sorts of interest in the interplay. So there's some people who are then appear then in the multiple photos and so on, and then rather than a kind of little piece, I'm the most proud about the fact that it's 500 pieces that are, with the exception of a kind of a single mistake, then there's 499 pieces that are highly then distinct, and then I think that was then not easy.
How about this? Was there a character in that you personally identified with the most?
I identify there with the kind of this with the successful men. I think overall, AI art, it is easy then to do like the beautiful kind of the girls as we see, but I really wanted to like be more than equal. But I tried to put in there like the successful guys, but then they are not. They still have their own personal issues there always. So for instance, this is a kind of good example. So at the first glance, you might think that he's then successful, but I think also the kind of the men have their own issues.
So what were you saying about this piece for people who are just listening? This is we have a photo up with a shirtless man who looks kind of tough and perhaps successful, and then there's someone in the background. But what do you think when you look at this image?
I think that's his fears or then kind of then personal things in his mind who are now then expressed in this kind of then guy who then looks then quite then creepy, and I think that's overall. I wanted to do men that look like they're like then James, then Dean, or like they are the kind of the perfect men, but they still have their own issues in this world.
That was kind of fun hearing your take on an image. How about this one? What do you kind of see when you look at this image of a lot of people in a laboratory, kind of with a festival going on and a lot of weird stuff?
This one tries to show the hubris between men. So this one tries to this is the scientific progress part, or this anyway tries to kind of illustrate teamwork and people that are scientific leap. This one tries to illustrate that people who feel themselves to be all equally important in a group. So
got it. Yeah, I'm kind of enjoying this. I'm gonna do one more. Swimming pools come up a lot in that collection. How about this image? It uses a swimming pool. You have 5 people who look like they're meant to be dressed identically. 5 women jumping in. Give us your thoughts on this one.
Well, this one tries to portray. This is also fantasies of life in this perfect fantasy world of life. But when you think about this place, it's like in all the swans, there's Swan Gold, then go west. This is the place that you then go to. So this is your fantasy world, and there's then extremely the beautiful people who then swim, who then jump in pools, but they're actually then kind of then faceless, so you can't actually even tell then who they are. So these are then fantasies of the person.
Understood. Yeah. How would it actually? My next question was going to be, where did the term "life in West America" come? I feel like I got it from you. It's this idea of a perfect world.
It's the life in West America. Our real places are North America and South America. Then there is no place as West America, but it's the place of fantasy. So people say that they want then to go west. I think that's the kind of this is the place that that they are then talking about.
Okay. What NFTs are you collecting, if any?
I am personally heavily then in the Braindrops, so I have a fairly substantial now, I have like 35 pieces or something like that. So that's my main. Of course, I want to support Braindrops, but I think overall, AI art is hot, and I think if you're then looking for somewhere to start to, that's a pretty then safe place then the growth.
Yeah, you said that you've been a photographer for 20 years, 20 to either 30, but what would you say are the biggest things that photography and AI art have in common, being an artist who's done kind of both fields?
Photography teaches the persons then to pick the best results. I mean, nowadays, if you're a photographer, many photographers then go outside and then they shoot like thousands of photos, and then they have a process that they have then learned to kind of like then to pick the two best ones. I think that's also a sign of then if you have not then used AI for a long time, that's usually a sign that you recognize that a person who then creates 5 pieces and then they post out those 5 ones almost like then the more you do it, then the more you understand that you really need to pick the best ones and you really need to refine and so on. And I think then photographers, of course, then if you do photography, then you then learn how to use photos then to tell stories and kind of like composition and so on. But I think overall it also teaches you this process of just that you need to spend time, and I think it is the mentally exhausting. So I mean, it is the mentally exhausting then to do the kind of the best work.
Got it. And what should someone do who wants to be part of your upcoming mints? Kind of just quick with the quick story for people who want to be part of REWORLD or your curated project.
Yeah, so there's 2 options. So you can either now go and buy a pass. So there's passes on these kind of this secondary markets on OpenSea. So if you go to this postphotography.xyz site, I'm sure there will be links there. So you can either get a pass and then start to join the auctions. It is perfectly fine also then to soon as the auctions are then complete. So there's one auction on April 6th and one on April 7th. As soon as they're done, you should then go to OpenSea, and then I'm sure in the few first kind of like first hours, first days, there will be plenty of opportunities then to pick out the work that you want for. So if you don't enjoy the kind of the blind mints, which is the day 2, and also then the day 1. So if you then want to pick a kind of a particular piece, so then that's also something you can do.
And what surprised you? Last question. What surprised you most about the way that the marketplace and the community and the NFT buyers interacted with life in West America?
I was then positively surprised, or kind of like then almost like they moved from the fact that they saw. Well, I hope they saw the work and the kind of the vision. So that it is not really about, as I said, art is not a technical problem. Art is then good art. Then tries to tell a story. And I think I then spent on this 2 months in the perfect then isolation. And it was then quite strange. So I was then quite sure, in the moments that I've been gone then completely crazy, then spending time with then this thing. So I was then happily pleased to see that it resonates. And the fact that, I try to do art that makes you feel something. And that is my hypothesis of like, that's the function of art. Hopefully you then feel something as you then start to see the art pieces. And I think that test that I then applied to myself, it then does kind of seem to work. And that is the test I will then continue then to use. So it should be something that makes you then feel something.
Do you think people will feel something different with your next project? How do you want people to feel when they see REWORLD versus Life in West America?
REWORLD probably has the darker themes, but I mean, it's fine to have like the darker feelings. So I do not want to replicate my work. So there's no point in trying to do it the same thing all over again. So if you enjoy then life in West America, it's then still there. It would be kind of then insane to try to do the same thing over again. I wanted to expand it in a artistic sense. It's the more advanced, it's more than conceptual. But I did apply, and I am still applying the same test. So every single piece in REWORLD, it makes then me feel something.
Roope Rainisto, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I think it was awesome having you here. One of the reasons I wanted to get you on so bad was because your work did what you seek for it to do. It had this, it felt like it was very clearly a new genre of work, but at the same time building this very unique connection that people have with the pieces. And you did that so gracefully and so exceptionally, and just very excited to see what more comes from you. So thanks for coming and telling your story.
It was a huge, I'm then extremely excited to be able to come here. So.
All right, that is it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you would like to help us out, head on over to proof.xyz and click on the reviews button at the very top and leave us a 5-star review. Thanks so much. Take care.